It's Waxing Lyrical, baby.
Hello, Waxers, and welcome to Waxing Lyrical with Mains and Dutch. I'm your host, Mains, and my colleague in the Danger Zone and Rainford is Mr. Neil Dutton. How are we, Neil?
Very cold. Sun, just because you're out, you can bring some heat as well. It would be lovely and appreciated.
Neil, if it was just me and you talking, we could talk about weather for hours, but that would be boring because right now, already on the phone with us, we have the wonderful Denny Carter with us. Denny, how are we? What's the weather like where you are?
We are well, yeah. I wanted to know what it's like for you guys. So right now, it's a little bit of a cold snap, and I'm probably going to make you guys furious. It's a cold snap, and it's 60 degrees.
Oh, yep. Furious has been achieved. Yep.
60 degrees where we are is when you get in the hot tub. You know what I mean? That's yeah. The UK sucks. God, why do we live here?
What's it like there?
What Neil, do you reckon it's 30? Would it be 30? I don't know. I don't know Fahrenheit. I don't know. I'll have to.
Yeah. Well, we're still getting snow in some places.
Yeah.
You know, I'm supposed to be playing cricket the weekend, and there's a snow warning.
Yeah.
It's like this. No, cricket balls are ridiculously hard.
Yeah.
They're like I don't know if that I've never had a baseball in the face, but I've had a cricket ball, so I don't know how to compare them. But when your fingers are cold, you don't want that ball coming anywhere near you because we don't wear gloves. You know, we don't have the big catcher's mitts or whatnot that baseball players have.
I have held both balls. Take that for how you will, but the baseball is not as hard. But I know that playing softball is miserable in the cold because even catching it with a glove can hurt. So I don't really know how you're able to do that.
No, and that's why I gave up rather quickly because noticed that my hands were not designed for such equipment. We have Denny to talk about NFL, but we also have him to talk about two classic weird whale stories that we've been sent. So first one, I'm going to dive over. One of my favourite films, Planet of the Apes. I found out it was real today. 24 monkeys escaped from German zoo for the day. This is in Berlin. About 24 monkeys broke out of a southwestern German zoo and spent all day lolling in the sun near a forest before being recaptured, authorities said Thursday. Now, if anyone's seen Planet of the Apes, they were not lolling in a forest. They were discussing tactics to take over the world. Germany, pay attention. Barbary apes escaped from the zoo in Lothingham, southwest of Stuttgart, and not far from the Swiss border. It's not entirely clear how they got away. Again, please see Planet of the Apes for details. But construction work at the zoo might have been a factor, police said. The primates were spotting roaming the area in a pack, but zoo employees were unable to recapture them and eventually lost track of them. This is literally the story from Planet of the Apes.
It is. That's remarkable. I'm a little scared, but I also, I feel for the apes. I feel, did you say they're monkeys?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I feel for them. All they were trying to do was relax a little bit outside of the confines of the zoo, and of course they're recaptured. I feel for them, but obviously you're right. I mean, they were hatching plans. This is no coincidence, and I think the whole nation of Germany should be on red alert at the moment.
Well, I mean, I've seen The Great Escape, and I know that some of them got away. I know that they rounded up the rest of them, accused them of being spies, and shot them. Yep. So I just hope that these monkeys, they were returned. There wasn't, where the senior monkey got called into the zoo commandant's office the next morning, saying, it's 50 of your men were shot yesterday. I don't think we need that type of tragedy in the world at the moment.
I hope it doesn't get that bleak for them. Here's to hoping.
The question is, are they immune to COVID, and is this their first step to world domination? That's my thoughts. They are plotting, and they said they were close to the Swiss border. Who are they speaking to in Switzerland during this point? Is there a cross-border? Is there a story that I haven't found yet about monkeys from Zurich who'd come to the German border to discuss tactics between each other?
Paul, these are questions that the mainstream media won't ask. So I'm I'm very happy that you're asking.
I could be on Fox News in no time. Next story is probably even better, and makes me fear for humanity. Mystery tree beast turns out to be Croissant. When animal welfare officers received a report of an unusual animal lurking in a tree in the Polish city of Krakow, they were not sure what to expect. People aren't opening their windows because they're afraid it will go into their house, the woman reportedly said. But a visit to the area showed the creature in question was not a bird or even a reptile, but a croissant. The Krakow Animal Welfare Society said the incident was genuine. I love the fact that they had to say, though, honestly, someone did say that this piece of pastry was mistaken to be some kind of killer beast. In writing on the Facebook, the organisation said its officers had asked the desperate caller whether the unidentified animal, which had been in the tree for 2 days, could be a bird of prey. The woman responded that it looked like a lagoon. Remembering the correct words, she meant iguana. But yeah, so Neil, I ask you first. What's the weirdest pastry you thought was an animal?
Well, it's hard to say. I mean, if I saw a croissant up a tree, I would hope my first thought would be, how did that get up there? It wouldn't be, if that's a croissant up a tree, then, I don't think at any stage I'll be thinking, why the croissants are taking over. Like, maybe they were meeting the apes. I don't know.
Poland-Germany border is pretty close, Neil. Do you know what I mean?
It is. It's all linked. It's just the fact that it's been up there 2 days. What's it? Waiting?
It hasn't moved
because it hasn't got arms and legs. Because it's a pastry.
Presumably, it hasn't moved. So what's the big deal? If you think it's a bird, it's dead. It's dead. And also, how big is this croissant? Is this the world's largest croissant? And yes, I am self-conscious about my pronunciation of the word after you guys beautifully pronounce it. I'm going to go with the straight American croissant.
It must have been like the size of a boomerang.
That's what I'm saying, right? Like, first of all, well, there's multiple questions, right? First of all, the woman probably needs to be locked away for stupidity. Let's hope she hasn't bred. Speaking of bread, we'll go back to the croissants.
Yeah.
How big is it? How does it get stuck up a tree? Who's lobbing a croissant up a tree? Like, surely you just get some jam and it's game over. Maybe some chocolate spread. Depends how European you're feeling. But like, as Denny quite rightly pointed out, it hasn't moved in 2 days. So whatever it is, it's probably dead, love.
Or just waiting.
Yeah, at that point, I mean, if I were concerned about a pastry being an animal in a tree, then I would, after the 48 hours would pass, and I would say, oh, well, no matter what it is, we're okay. Everything's going to be okay. My little dog is not in danger, and everything's. I say this because there's a hawk that's been circling my yard recently, and that we have a little dog named Ziggy. And Ziggy is, I believe, in mortal danger if this hawk gets his way. So I empathize with this woman, but I also think it's kind of strange.
So we'll move straight on to the questions, Danny. And our first one is about Ziggy. I also have recently acquired a dog, Parker. And my question to you is: did you imagine that your whole family would be over it by now, and the dog would be living elsewhere?
Not at all. No, I thought I would be over it because I'm not a dog person in any sense of the word. Never have been. But of course, I absolutely love this dog, and he goes nuts every time I come into a room. I mean, and the kids and my wife, and he loves to be held. He's a little dog, like I said. So yeah, the bond is strong. I was wrong. There can be good dogs, and I thankfully have one.
We had when I was growing up, I was about 15 and still living at home. We got our first dog. It was a Basset Hound called Norman. And the basset hounds and dogs especially are pack animals. So Norman knew that my dad was top of the tree.
The alpha.
The alpha, yeah. He was also damn sure that I was not the beta.
Yeah, you weren't. I don't know what Z is in the alphabet in Greek, but let's go beyond it.
It would be a case of if my dad and sister started having an argument, and that was frequent, I could be anywhere in the house. Norman would come and bite me. Almost as if to say, I don't know what they're arguing about, but I'm sure it's your fault.
Oh, no.
So literally, if I heard them arguing, I had to leave the house just because it's like, either they're going to both try and get on my side so that the other one can shout at me and they think they've got backup, or I'm going to get bitten.
Oh, Neil, that's a tough story.
In the house. Parker seems very much like Ziggy, Denny. Lots of jumping, lots of, oh my God, I haven't seen you in 5 minutes. Amazing. Where have you been? Like jumping up and down, crazy. As we're doing this podcast, I had to take my son to, we'll call it soccer training. So he hasn't been walked today, so he's kind of just at the door, kind of like looking in, going, so when are we going for the walk that we usually go on now? Because right. I'm like ready and you're not, so hurry up. So yeah, here we go. Yeah,
so I grew up with cats. My parents were big cat people. I mean, not like weird cat people where we had, we didn't have 11 cats or anything, but we had a couple, and we would replace one when we would go for the total cat replacement when they would die. So I'm used to, domestic animals completely ignoring you and being, complete, trying to avoid some cursing here for the kids, but, being terrible to you and not needing you at all. Right. And so I'm just stunned by the neediness of Ziggy. I mean, he, like you said, you're gone. Like, I'm doing this podcast now. I guarantee you when I go back upstairs, this dog is going to hop up around me and whine and lick me like he hasn't seen me in weeks. Like I'm coming home from war. And it's amazing. It's an amazing feeling.
Last week, Danny, was one of the prime events of the sporting calendar, namely the Masters.
Yes.
And just looking through your tweets, which is always a cathartic experience, you don't seem to be a fan of the event.
Okay, look, I've been to Augusta, and I've watched, every Masters since I was like 13 years old. When Tiger won, and that made the Masters real to me as a kid, as it did to millions of people. I could speak in the U.S. I mean, the golf became like a real sport after Tiger won that tournament. So it was a seminal event in sports in the U.S. and across the world, of course. But so I'm not a hater, but as I've grown older and more cynical, I can't help but notice that, when I'm making my DFS Masters lineups, which, by the way, you'll be shocked to know, were a total disaster. I'm looking at players who haven't been relevant in golf for 20 years, 30 years sometimes, and I'm wondering, why are they in this tournament, and why are they competing with the best in the world? Is this really a major? And the answer, I would think, is no, because you don't have the best field possible. That's just
and Neil, this is because they allow anybody who's ever won it to play again, right?
I'm sorry, I should say it's a lifetime exemption. Lifetime. So you have I'm trying to think. Sandy Lyle, who won the thing.
That's who I was going to pick. Yeah, he can't even swing it anymore. He hasn't been able to swing for 20 years, and he gets to play 2 rounds at Augusta every year. And I'll never get to go.
Sandy Lyle won the thing when, not to get political, but when Ronald Reagan was president, and he's still playing, and he's still taking up a spot that could go to a top 100 player in the world.
I just thought that maybe it was alluded to on the NBC Sports Edge podcast, a good football show. It was alluded to that maybe you didn't like it because the previous winner got to pick what they ate the next year.
They also do that.
And that this would imply, that they'd have to, eat something reasonable rather than.
I'm not a food hater here. I'm just picky.
I as Mains can point out, no one holds a candle to me in terms of pickiness.
No, I remember talking about it with you. On the Good Football Show, we talked about what we would pick if we were the Masters champion. I don't even know what I said. I think I said chicken tenders, which honestly, in hindsight, what am I thinking? Like there's got to be a better answer than that. I mean, mostly I'm trying to avoid steak. I'm not a steak guy, so it's way too high tea for me, and so I that's mainly what I was trying to do. But whatever I picked, I'm sure that most people would not enjoy.
So you probably know this, Denny, because he's talked it. But Dustin Johnson went what is described as solidly American staple dishes: lobster and corn fritters, followed by fillet steak and mash, followed by peach cobbler. That was his feed there.
That's very American.
I really don't think I'd want to play golf after eating it.
The thing I don't understand is because we're northern Neil and northern UK.
Where's the gravy?
Fillet steak and mash. What are you having on the mash? Because mash is one of the driest foods on the planet, so therefore needs gravy. But you don't put gravy on steak. This is wild. Can you imagine being in Augusta and just going to the guy?
Gravy, mate.
Can you gravy for this mash, lad? And he'd just be looking at you like.
I think as well it'd be one of those things that automatically you especially would just sound more Scouse asking for it. Hey mate, got any gravy here, lad?
Not good.
Oh, that's funny. I enjoy some gravy, but it's not that commonly served around here.
See, we've had this discussion with Dave Damashek as well, and he always talks about how great it is that at Thanksgiving you get to eat stuffing and all this. It's like we have it every Sunday. It's no big deal for us.
Yeah, it's just Sunday, mate. Just do it. Yeah. It's fine. Just embrace it. Denny, let's be honest. You are the public face of Zero running back. As Neil has documented this, so for the historians among us, you please take it as you wish. You've become the Stalin to Sean Siegel's Lenin. Neil wrote this, literally, I'm reading it. When he sent it, I was like, this is the wildest question ever. How do you think the 17th game will affect Zero running back?
Good question. And Neil, you're right, because Sean, and I do try to link to his work and try to reference it as much as possible. I can't imagine that anybody is unaware of it, but I have a larger audience now with NBC Sports Edge, trying to get that out there. But you're right. I am taking the principles that Sean laid out, and I am saying you must abide. So good.
Bloodless coup.
Well done there. I'll be thinking about that all day. And so your question was, 17th game. Yes. Okay. So this is something that I haven't quite written about yet because I haven't, quite come to a conclusion. But I definitely think that it helps the case for, largely fading running back in your league and working the waiver wire and also obviously picking up running backs who would fill in and would get the full workload if their starter were rested, whether it's mid-season, late season, however coaches are going to handle this, and we really don't know yet. It'll be a learning experience for everybody in fantasy football this year. But to target those guys who would have that 3-down role or something approaching a 3-down role in that situation, I think will become slightly more important with 17 games.
It does, because it's actually saying we don't know what's going to happen. So even if we just assume that a team does want to ride one running back, say like Tennessee with Derrick Henry last year, are they from a player point of view, it doesn't make sense. I mean, I know it's only one more game, yeah, but it's still a one more game of how can I put this? Very big bastards trying to hit you. And you'd probably like to limit that, to an extent. I mean, I always think back to Terrell Davis back when he got his 2,000 yards. He sat out 8 quarters of football.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yes, he could have had 2,500, nearly 3,000. Whereas now it's we got an extra game, so you'd hope rational coaching teams will say, okay, we need to be a bit cleverer with running backs, which means obviously from a fantasy point of view, it opens up the possibility to the fringe players who we might look at and say some weeks, oh, he's just a 5-touch player tops. Well, now maybe it's 5 getting towards 10, and now obviously, opportunity being the driver that it is.
That's
suddenly, maybe Jordan Howard isn't dead. I hope he is, but from a fantasy point of view, not real, obviously.
Yeah. Ooh, got dark there. Someone who I've talked about on the NBC Sports Edge show, the Good Football Show, is Gus Edwards, and I would guess, maybe hope that what you're talking about with coaches sort of siphoning off some of that lead back rushing attempts would benefit someone like him, who is clearly heading into the season as the number 2 back, and that's acknowledged, and his ADP reflects that. But maybe you're right. Maybe you tack on when you're making projections. If you do that kind of thing, you tack on a couple more carries per game, maybe. And it doesn't make a huge difference, no, but it does make a better case, I think, for getting on board with those kind of backs.
Obviously, as part of your work for NBC Sports Edge, formerly Vote World, just saying it, you have to, you have blurbing to do and looking at players and whatnot. Are there any storylines that when it's your turn to blurb, you sit looking at it and go, oh, for fuck's sake, I did this yesterday? Are there any storylines that you are not contractually to say you're not sick to the teeth of, but would you say, I wish this would go away?
Neil, yes. There was a point where I was doing at least 3 Deshaun Watson blurbs every day. And, not only are you doing, 2 or 3, maybe sometimes 4 blurbs a day on one player, you're doing it on an incredibly difficult topic. As the writer of the blurb, you have to be very careful about language, about legal language, about attribution to attorneys or to accusers and whatnot, and that becomes a little bit difficult. I will say that on a slightly lighter note, I feel like I was writing about Clowney visiting the Browns for like 2 weeks. Like I was so tired of him of writing about him going, maybe the Browns, and then finally, of course, he signs. And as soon as I saw that, I was on duty. I was on news duty, and I saw that. I go to change his team in the back end, and I made a mistake that almost showed up on the front end of the site. Anyway, it's a long story, but I was so psyched to finally get the Clowney story done with that I almost made a huge error, but I didn't. Thankfully.
It's as you say, especially with, we're not going to go into it, obviously, but with Deshaun Watson. I mean, I used to do a little bit of blurbing for Fantasy Pros back in the day, and I used to try and break it down to be, it was stats, analysis, opinion. So it was three little paragraphs, which is fine for most things, especially like the day after a game. Everyone, you can see what they've done, what they could have done, and what they're going to do. Something like what's happening with Deshaun Watson. As I say, it's a bit like, this isn't why I got into this.
Yeah, no, you're right. Those legal situations can be tough. I mean, another thing that's difficult to write about is the accusations within the Washington football team organization, and Dan Snyder and others in the organization and what people have accused them of. So those are tough. And I do like the challenge of having to take those up sometimes. But of course, it's much more enjoyable to do like a traditional blurb on like a coach's comment about a player, or sometimes you'll sometimes on slow news days I will go and find a stat to blurb about. And this is something I don't need to do during the regular season because there's too much news, but in the off season I'll do. And those are fun to dig up as well.
As we know, Dante would have us believe in the 9 circles of hell. So what level would the creators and consumers of Milkshake IPAs slot in at, Denny?
It's got to be at least the 7th circle. I mean, that's Milkshake IPAs. Now, I've never had one, and I'm sure if I did have one, it doesn't sound like I would like it, but I would be then told by dozens of people online that I didn't have the right Milkshake IPA, that I had a bad one, and I should try the one that they like, and then everything will be fine. I'm not going to like it. I'm not going to like. Have you guys had one?
No, I just reading here that a hazy IPA brewed with milk sugar, right? And as you quite rightly point out, IPA drinkers are those type who, if you have a bad IPA, they'll tell you that's because you had a bad one, and they'll list 700 different types from a local place round the corner down the road that does a wonderful chocolate number, and you're like, no, like, stop it. Nope. But like, right. Milkshake's milkshake, right? Let's have that then, and IPA or beer is beer, and let's just keep them. It's okay to be separate. We don't have to continually merge things together. It's not needed.
Yes. Neil, have you had one?
I have not. I've not really, with the lockdown being as it is, I've gone over 14 months since my last hangover.
Okay, well, there
so
you go.
I'm terrified of what's going to happen the first time I get one again. It probably will actually kill me. Because it's like, Archer, Archer FX, he never has a hangover because he never actually stops drinking. So the cumulative hangover would kill him. I'm not saying I was like battle hardened, but at least I knew how to deal with waking the next day and wishing I was dead. Yeah. Whereas this one, it'll be, the muscle memory will be shot completely.
Yes.
There's a pub that we like to go to in Liverpool that has a fine selection of craft beers. Okay. But I think if even that, if someone walked in and said, "Have you got a Milkshake IPA?" it would literally be like a scene from Deliverance. The piano player would stop, the whole room go quiet, and just someone in the background just just the only noise you'd make. It's I just again saw it on Twitter. I was like, Milkshake IPA. It's one of those phrases that. Why are we doing this?
It's a horrifying phrase, and I'm with Paul. Like, let's not. Why do we have to combine everything? Like, why does everything have to be crossed over with other things? Like people say, I like an IPA, I like a milkshake. Let's put them together. That's gross. It doesn't have to be that way. I don't get it.
Everything's got to everyone's got to have a nice taste now. This tastes of cherries. It's a headache tablet. I'm taking it to stop feeling a headache. I don't need to feel fruity while I'm eating it.
Yeah, exactly right. Although, Neil, now, based on your previous conversation, I haven't actually had alcohol since December. I'm so fearful of our annual trip abroad, if that ever happens again, because I may never return back to the UK.
You will be honoured in song when we return without
you. But passed away in a gutter in Germany or Belgium.
So can I just suggest one thing here for the hangover situation? Okay, now I'm a baby about hangovers. Even if I have a minor one, I act like I'm on my deathbed. The way to avoid it, and you probably have heard this, but I think it's worth saying, is to just hydrate yourself like a maniac before you go to bed. I mean, really, just get ridiculous. Lots and lots and lots of water. I mean, you're going to be up peeing all night, but you were never going to really sleep well anyway. Sure. With all that, if you've had enough alcohol. So that's what I have done as recently as I want to say 2 weekends ago, and it helps. It helps. I learned that trick from Pete Overzet. Pete Overzet is does the same thing. He drinks like a gallon of water after he drinks, and it works. So try it.
See, we went it was on a stag do a few years ago, and I was roundly mocked because I had this pair of jean shorts.
That's because they were awful. They were awful for good reason.
But they had pockets that could comfortably fit a 2-litre bottle in. As we were going around drinking all day, I was topping up this 2-litre bottle of water, necking it, and going down. So it was, people next day not feeling too good were still mocking the shorts.
But Neil, you look like a homeless person.
with
a group of mid-30s sophisticated
angry scousers.
Yeah, I'm going to call it sophisticated, and you can't change it.
That's so funny. I mean, jean shorts are funny. You walking around with a big ass bottle of water, that's funny. I mean, everything about that is funny. But technically, you are correct, and I bet you felt better than everybody else.
Yeah, it was for one of the rare times in my life. I was the big winner.
You were. You were.
Denny, I just have to ask one question as well. We'll let you go. I did have another question, but balls to that because I just thought we're talking about things that taste nice. How many days after the meat mountain could you still taste it?
Oh man. Well, so my view of eating the meat mountain has been forever altered by my colleague John Daigle at NBC Sports Edge. Because, I ate my meat mountain in my car on a Friday night in my car, and it took me about, I think, 17 minutes to eat it, okay? And I was doing nothing. I was talking to the camera, of course, but I was doing nothing but eating. And so it's not like I was socializing. But it took me 17 minutes, and that was legit. Like, it took me that long to really get through it. John Daigle ate the damn thing in 4.5 minutes. And so, I mean, he wasn't feeling great afterwards, but I, and as you would expect, but he crushed me on that front. And your question, how long did it take? I was still feeling it, I would say, like the afternoon after. It just like a lead ball in your stomach, you know what I mean? And eventually it went away. I think I gained about 8 pounds after eating that.
Because obviously we lucky or not, we don't have Arby's in this country. So seeing you order it, this thing that came up the cellophane, I was like, I'm gonna have to look into this, and it was like 1,200 calories or something. I was like, I'm not allowed more than 1,500 a day. But I'm looking at it thinking, that would be virtually a whole day's calories.
Whole day.
And it just, I like meat, but this just looked,
that was extreme.
It looked awful.
Oh, it was terrible. Terrible.
So we spoke to John a couple of weeks ago, and I was not aware of his 4-minute meat mountain destruction. So I guess my question becomes, is, Danny, correct me if I'm wrong, you're from Maryland?
That's right.
And John is from the southern states of America. Do you think that they're just built differently to be able to destroy the meat mountain? It's almost a Confederate Yankee cat style situation.
Right. Possibly that could be in play. I would just say that John's probably just a tougher guy than I am, and I mean that's probably what it comes down to, is the fact that I'm just a huge baby, and every bite I'm agonizing. It's I don't like the taste. Obviously, it's too much meat. They even had basically like chicken tenders at the bottom, but like thick chicken tenders, which by themselves were fine, but with 18 layers of meat on top of that was not as fine. But yeah, I would just say John is more of a dude's dude than me.
Well, maybe you just haven't had a good meat mountain.
You're right. I'm shocked that no one said that.
Danny, as always, wonderful to speak to you. We will let you go. Enjoy being attacked by your dog, who will believe that you've been gone forever. And we will speak to you again soon.
Thanks, guys.
Well, Neil, as always, Denny Carter, absolutely magnificent there. But he couldn't stay with us forever. We still got more news to talk about. A couple of NFL stories that piqued our interest this week. Firstly, an absolutely amazing story on The Athletic about your Philadelphia Eagles, Neil. Paranoia, mismanagement, and office politics inside the Eagles' downfall under Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman. You've read it, right? I think the only word you can use to describe it is wow.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it looks like, as we've joked, it looks like there are several people who sold their soul to the devil in order to get the Eagles a Super Bowl, and now that bill has become due. It is incredible almost that the Eagles almost accidentally seem to have won that Super Bowl, considering how much, I'm not going to say backstabbing, but how much backdoor intriguing there seems to be going on. I mean, personally, if I'd been hired to be the head football coach of an organisation, and I had a Tuesday meeting with my GM, who's never played the game, and my owner, who's never played the game and supposedly pays me to make types of decisions, and I just coached us to a win in 25-mile-an-hour winds, and he said to me, why didn't you pass the ball more? I'd walk out. But to stop me from saying something I would regret, it would be I think it's best for us all if I leave now. As one of us is a football guy, two of us are not. And it appears that the non-football guys are talking, and they shouldn't be.
I think the idea of a debrief every week to talk about the game and to go through game plan and situational discussion and think about maybe what you'd do better next time is a completely logical and understandable point. I have absolutely zero idea why the owner's in that meeting. Like, what I found interesting about this is everyone knows what Jerry Jones is like. Everybody knows what Daniel Snyder's like. No one really knew, or I didn't, maybe other people did, how involved Jeffrey Lurie was in all this. And he seems to have his fingerprints everywhere, which surprised me and shows that, there's only really the Maras who don't get involved in football operations in the NFC East.
No, they just let Mike Francesa dictate policy. It is interesting, one thing that came out in, I think it was either an article or a piece I've read since it. They've done these debriefs since 2013. Now, that is an interesting date for one reason. Andy Reid left the Eagles in 2012. So, to translate, Big Red didn't put up with this shit. And, Big Red was the first power struggle that Roseman won. He's 3-0 since. And obviously this is a bad sign for Nick Sirianni, who in his press conferences has come across as someone who really doesn't want to be up there. But when he did a film breakdown with friend of the show, Fran Duffy, and my God, the enthusiasm came through the screen. He's talking about football. So clearly this man can communicate there. He can speak to his players. Would I like him to be able to string coherent sentences together? Well, it's never stopped me. But can he talk to his players? And it seems that is the type of person he is. But unfortunately, what's to stop the Eagles bringing him in for one of these debriefs when he hasn't even got the clout of, I won a Super Bowl 2 years ago?
Well, it's interesting, right? Mark Ross was on the Ringer NFL show. He worked in the front office of both the Eagles and the Giants and worked under Reid in Philadelphia, and he seemed to suggest that it wasn't that the story wasn't really news to him. It's just that Andy Reid was Andy Reid, so kind of told him to do one. I think what we do know is that Howie Roseman has many lives, and as you quite rightly pointed out, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, and sometimes if you can be both, it's even better, right? So if you hit a hot streak of being lucky while being good, you win a Super Bowl. That's what happens. But when you look now at the team, there wasn't that much long-term planning in it. It was a team built to make the most out of Carson Wentz and actually became a team that made the most out of Nick Foles.
It was. I don't believe that in terms of the planning and the team building, I don't think they were intending to be competing for a Super Bowl in 2017. I think they were intending to be in a competitive, genuine Super Bowl contender 2019-20.
Yeah, probably.
But the fact that they won the Super Bowl, that then led to a bit of, okay, well, now we need to cash in. This is our window. When it was like, no, this isn't our window. We're actually still outside.
Yeah,
we're still tapping at the window to be let in. So it was a case of that's when bad decisions were made. Roseman himself has come out and said, "Oh, I get too attached to players." Well, you need to get yourself away from that position then. Howie Roseman is one of the best general manager, vice president, player of football operations in the NFL in terms of acquiring draft picks. He is one of the worst, however, at spending them. So while he's great at getting them, and as I say, this is a man who got a first for Sam Bradford. He got a conditional pick for Mark Sanchez. He's managed to, he's got picks from moved down 6 spots. Do I think he's going to do anything with these picks? No, because the results of the last few years would indicate that he is not a talent evaluator. So if you've got someone who can't evaluate talent, he's now going to be talking, from a position of to the coach. Well, I got you these players. Why aren't you winning with them? When we know that Roseman is essentially bulletproof, why would you want to? Why would you want to coach this team? It's as you said. I know there's only 32 of these head coaching jobs around, and you don't turn them down. But you've seen that a head coach who won the Super Bowl, a head coach who was given player personnel control 1 year earlier, the winningest head coach in franchise history. These have all gone up against Howie Roseman and have all lost.
This is what I'm saying is there's only 32 of these jobs and someone will eventually take it. That's how Jim Zorn becomes the Washington coach. These things, what I'm saying is, I'm not saying Nick Sirianni is Jim Zorn. Like, I don't know him. I don't know how he's going to be, and that I'm not what I'm suggesting is someone will take the job. But I think you're right to suggest that you're not going to get, if you wanted one, an upper echelon coach. The reason you get Chip Kelly is because you had Andy Reid. The reason you get Doug Peterson, who won a Super Bowl but was a step down, was because you had Chip Kelly and Andy Reid. But you get Nick Sirianni because of the last 3 things that have happened. Do you know it's and unless that changes, then you're going to be in this problem going forward. And this is the best leaders and heads of places in the world understand their own strengths and weaknesses. And what you tend to find in the NFL is in the dysfunctional franchises is that they don't. Is that, I go back to Washington, right? Bruce Allen was an excellent kisser of Daniel Snyder's bum and cap manager. Okay? He's good with finances and being best mates with the owner. He's not good at NFL stuff. Do you know? And in theory, was suggesting Howie Roseman is on as long as similar lines, and that means you need to get other people in positions. But the problem is, who wants to work for someone who is like best mates with the owner?
Yeah,
that's a problem.
I think it's interesting when you see there are 2 prominent talking heads who it's always very interesting to hear when they are asked about the Eagles. One of them is Daniel Jeremiah, who by all accounts has an excellent relationship with Howie Roseman. The other is Lewis Riddick, who does not have an excellent relationship with Howie Roseman. And it's interesting to say that DJ seemed to, when he was speaking about this the other day, he was talking about it, but it seemed like he wasn't.
Yeah,
it was like, DJ, that was just waffle, mate. There was nothing. You said nothing there. I've not actually seen what Lewis Riddick has said because I'm waiting to get myself in a good position to read that because I'll probably have to cry into a pillow after it.
Absolutely. Neil, final story we wanted to go on to was Julian Edelman. I think what I'd like to say about him first is this is a 7th round picked quarterback from a small school that became the most important receiver on a team that went to and won multiple Super Bowls. that is an amazing achievement. And, you know, let's be honest, he's got a better quarterback rating in the NFL than Tom Brady does. So, you know, these type of things go for you. Do I think he's retired? I'll see. I fully expect him to be in Tampa in week 9. The Hall of Fame stuff, like, I can understand why people would say that he is. Like, I have a criteria, personally, and he doesn't meet that criteria. But frankly, who cares? Because, you know, it's just a big room where old people vote for.
Yeah, when narrative overtakes reality, this is where you get situations like Julian Edelman being in the Hall of Fame. Now, yes, he has been responsible for huge moments in the postseason. Obviously, he was a Super Bowl MVP. But if we put his career numbers up against another wide receiver who has been a Super Bowl MVP, who had to wait 5 years to get into the Hall of Fame, is he statistically comparable to Hines Ward? And again, the answer is no. And some argue that Hines Ward, well, he got in because of longevity. You know, he played that long, he was bound to put up the stats. Yeah. Julian Edelman was a good player. He was a baller in that when the lights were brightest, he shone. Does that make him a Hall of Famer? I don't think so. Do I think it matters? No. Is it the fact that any time any player who does anything of note retires straight away, we have to enter into a referendum on the Hall of Fame credentials? It's getting old. Yeah. It's getting boring. I mean, it's one of those. I always remember someone saying, handball is an Olympic event. But how does the gold medal winner of handball stand next to the winner of the marathon?
Yeah.
And expect to be on a... So it's like, hi, Julian Edelman here. What, Hall of Fame wide receiver? Hi, I'm Jerry Rice.
Yeah, I mean, I don't... It matters to players, and I understand that, right? And you will go down in Patriots law as one of the greatest ever players, right? Because that's how you work in that kind of situation. I've got no problem with that whatsoever. Like, that's completely fine. But for me, you've got to have been an elite wide receiver, and when I say elite, like top 3 wide receiver, multiple years, and he just wasn't. That's not a problem. That doesn't mean I think he wasn't very good. That's far from it. Just because it's like, what frustrates me is if he's not Hall of Fame, that means you're suggesting he's rubbish. I'm not, like, the problem you have with players like Julian Edelman is that Troy Aikman and Eli Manning are in the Hall of Fame. Or Eli Manning isn't, but will be, right? Yeah. And Troy Aikman is. They are mediocre to average quarterbacks. The Dallas Cowboys fans come at me. They are, but they won multiple Super Bowls as the quarterback, so therefore are Hall of Famers. That's not how it works. It's not how it works. Like, it just, but that's how people describe it. Yeah, it's almost like straight away. Well, is he a Hall of Famer? No. Well, he's a bust then. No, it's not what I said. No, exactly right.
I mean, the way around it is let everyone in. Well, they're not going to. So we're not going to do this like, with Cooperstown, where MLB, where it's like, literally you need a letter from the Pope, the Queen. You need to have got a diamond from Smaug's cave. You need to have beaten the Kobayashi Maru and done the Kessel Run in less than 5 parsecs.
Exactly. That's where we are. Julian Edelman, wonderful player, and there we go. Neil, that's the end of the show. Been a brilliant one as always. Where can people catch you between now and when we're back again?
At the Twitter on Endutton13. Not done much writing this week, so just follow me on Twitter for the good tweets.
And also the not so good ones. I'm at Mandy7. Combined, we are at waxing_lyrical. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll see you on the other side. These top guys are out.